Good morning, ladies. Shavua Tov Mevorach. Today, Monday, the 27th, I believe. Yes, 27th day of Tevet, corresponding to the 27th day of January 2025. Today's class dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat Menachem ben Belina Alav Shalom. We're going to continue on Pirkei Abot, chapter 5, page 74. If you have the Pirkei Abot books, you got plenty of books on the table. Make sure they all go around. And Be'ezat Hashem, we'll begin right away. Mishnah number 10. For those that were here, not last week because I had a meeting with Eliyahu and Navi, I believe, but I'm not happy that he didn't stay. But tomorrow is coming twice. God willing, yes. So Be'ezat Hashem, hopefully we'll have great news for all of Am Israel. So the last class that we learned, it was about how does a person achieve self-refinement as a person. What do we do to polish our personality? So we're going to read now actions that we can do to benefit the entire world. Can you imagine you're sitting down in sunny Florida and you're doing an action or a certain type of behavior that has an influence in the entire world? There are many people out there who would like to change the world, right? It's not easy to change the world. But if we change ourselves, by default, we're going to be benefiting the world. So let's read together Mishnah number 10, page 74. Shiv'at minei pur'aniyot ba'in la'olam. There are 7 kinds of punishments, so to speak, that come to the world. Al-shiv'a gufei abera. For 7 different categories of transgressions. Now, what does it mean? We need to understand one thing, that there are, when we use the word punishment, how unpleasant that word may be to many of us, if not to all of us. But I think what the Mishnah is trying to tell us is, the world has issues. The world has problems. If we believe that the world has no issues and the world has no problems, I think that we need to look again at the picture of the world, like the fires in California, right? And everything of madness that's going around the world. And the question is, why? So this Mishnah will give us at least some indication, but if there is one area of concern concerning this particular Mishnah, is Eretz Israel. Because at the end of the day, don't forget what the Gemara writes, Yerushalayim oro shel olam. The city of Yerushalayim is like the epicenter of the world. The city of Yerushalayim is the light of the world. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu shines His holy light, the way the Gemara writes, in the city of Yerushalayim. And from Yerushalayim comes the beracha to the entire world. Meaning to say that whatever happens in Yerushalayim or whatever happens in Eretz Israel, it carries a side effect for good or the opposite. So let's see what the Mishnah discusses, the matters that affect the world. So Mishnah number 10, page 74, we mention 7 categories. I'm not sure how many we're going to be able to cover today, but at least we follow the text of the Mishnah, and we'll cover this Mishnah, and then we'll go into the deeper meanings. So the Mishnah says, Miksat me'aserin, umiksatan enan me'aserin. Rule number 1, the Mishnah says, people are not careful in the laws of Ma'aser. Ma'aser means to give net 10% of your net profit. Listen to the words. Net of the profit, not of the revenue, of the profit. It's a big difference. Revenue is how much money you made, let's say. Let's say you sold this item, you make $5 profit. that doesn't mean there is a net profit, because from the selling price, you got to remove the cost of the item, for example. That's what it means in this case. Some people give maaser, some people don't give maaser. I know wonderful people that they give 20%. That's called homesh. Homesh, it's double than 10. 10 is the minimum. 20 is allowed unless the person, Baruch Hashem, has so much beracha that, thank God, they can afford more. So a week ago, I met someone that gives 26% of maaser. Hashem's name, Yotke Vavke. They used to do 20%, and now in the last year and a half, they upgraded their maaser to 26%. Big beracha, big success. Now we're talking about maaser 10. Ra'av shel basoret ba, famine that comes from drought. Because if there is drought, that means that the field does not produce. If there is no rain, the field does not produce. If the field does not produce, there is no food. If there is no food, people starve. It's actually a pasuk in the Shema. Behara af Hashem, Hashem will release His anger. Be'atzar et hashamayim, He will block the heavens. He's going to put a cork. Water does not come down from the heaven. That's the meaning. Be'lo yeh matar, and there will not be rain. Be'adama lo titeret yebula, and the land will not produce or will not deliver what they need to. And then the Jewish people are going to say, you know what? There is famine in the land. We're leaving the land of Israel. It's a pasuk in the Torah. It's a pasuk in the Shema that we say every day, second paragraph. If you pray in a Sephardic synagogue, you see that in the middle of the second paragraph, the Hazan, or whoever is saying the Shema to the Kahal, this pasuk that I just quoted, it says in an undertone. Why do we say it in an undertone? Because this verse is not a blessing. This verse is exactly what the Mishnah is teaching us today. Miksatam re'evim, when there is famine, some people go hungry. Umiksatam seve'im, and some people are satisfied. In other words, maybe you don't have income because the field doesn't produce food, but maybe you're not in the food industry. You are in the technological world. And then for you, rain, no rain, doesn't bother you. Gambru shelo le'aser. But if everyone decided, you know what, no need to give maaser, haz v'shalom, ra'av shel mehuma b'shel basoret, ba the famine resulting from the fright of armed bands. That means looting. 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 Looting means riots. Riots. Like it happens in Los Angeles, New York, many places, that people literally go into the supermarket, go into the stores, go into the pharmacies, they steal. They tell you, I'm not committing a felony. It's below $1,000, $9.99. In my olden days, $9.99 was below $10. Now it's $9.99 means below $1,000. That in certain states you can steal that amount and it's not punishable.
That's correct.
Not anymore, Trump.
I know, Baruch Hashem, Uncle Donald Trump came and, and he's doing some good changes. And, he's sending a lot of headaches out of the country. But obviously, as the Kahal knows, we don't get involved into politics, but it's scary. Because whatever was allowed under the auspices of the law, or under the auspices of society, you have to think, why California? Why California? Because that's where the madness comes from. You have to be realistic. And if you happen to be from California, God forbid, there's many wonderful people and a beautiful community, and they agree with what I'm saying. Many of them tell me, Rabbi, they said that we are in Gan Eden here. Republican state, normalcy, decency. there they tell me, mamash, that more and more people are leaving because they don't feel comfortable, they don't feel safe, and the fire definitely created some more ideas, Haz v'Shalom. And we pray that Be'ezat Hashem, that the scenarios in the Los Angeles, in Chicago, in New York, even in Florida, whatever place it may be, that hopefully becoming aware that, look, did we discuss here anything complicated? No. What did we say? Ma'aser, one second, Beshelo litol et ha'hala, and when they concluded that there is no need to separate hala anymore, Ra'av shel kelaya ba, famine of complete destruction on sus. Yani, the Mishnah is trying to tell us is, you want the world to have a normal status of the world, which we're not going to we're going to cover the next Mishnah, but the next Mishnah discusses about deber, pestilence, a plague. Why plagues? Stay tuned. Let's see if we can get to this Mishnah as well. But I think that it's imperative that we try to dissect a bit this particular Mishnah to understand what's the relationship, because Ma'aser or Hala, and also who has the audacity to suddenly say, guess what? No more Hala. No more Hala separation. That's what some people can say. And otherwise, how do you explain this Mishnah? Gambru, everyone concluded, today no need. Today no need. There are people who are like that. How many times you hear, no, this was in the olden days. The Torah doesn't change. The Torah sometimes needs to have halachic clarifications. Of course, that's why you have something called in Jewish learning, she'elot u'tshuvot. For example, research of specific questions. Let's say, if I go to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and I look halacha, how do I kasherize a microwave? I guarantee you that I will not find the word microwave in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. Why not? Because the microwave is only a few years old, and the Shulchan Aruch is 500 years old. You think 500 years old, they existed, cell phones and digital watches and all these fridges, like I said in the morning class today. Today in the morning class we discussed the topic of Shabbat, etc. And I throw in a free plug saying that when people nowadays in our generation buys an appliance, now you need to go to buy an appliance with Shabbat mode. Because if you don't have the Shabbat mode in the appliance, the more sophisticated and brand new refrigerators or freezers, they have sensors. They let you know that you're running out of milk. They have a scale, they have a sensor where you put the milk. And when it reaches a certain weight, the digital screen says, buy milk. And some of them, they even tell you, buy milk. Or they even send you a text message. Buy milk. True. Or you want to remove the light bulb, and guess what? There is no light bulb. You have LED. You got to remove the entire LED. Guess what? If you try to remove the entire LED, you can say Kaddish on the fridge. That's the way the system works. And that's why, yes, there is a hack with magnets on top of the door, but not all the time it works. Certain models do, certain do not. My suggestion is that even when you're going to buy a fridge or an appliance, make sure that it is Shabbat friendly. This way you avoid any prohibitions on Shabbat. Imagine every time you open the fridge, you're doing an Avon. You think that you're Shomer Shabbat until it comes to take out the maza from the fridge. You took it out, Hilul Shabbat. If the light goes on, etc. A person needs to be with the proper precautions. So let's go back to the Mishnah. What's the relationship of these transgressions of not giving the maaser or separating the challah? I will tell you that in the olden days, in our generation, and maybe more than one generation, but I don't think no more than that, the bulk of maaser was related to the grains on the field, fruits, vegetables, and money. Outside of Israel is mostly money. In Israel today, even though we have no Bet HaMikdash, you need to separate terumot and maaserot. Obviously, if you buy from a fruits or vegetable stand that has a rabbinical supervision that terumah, maaser, etc. was separated, terumah means that you give 2% of your profit to the Kohen. Maaser, you give 10% of it to the Levi. And maaser sheni or maaser ani, or you give it to the poor, or you take it to Yerushalayim to eat. Bottom line, 22% tax. That's very good. Some of us have a higher bracket, okay? But 22% more or less. Today, since we do not have the Bet HaMikdash, and everyone, without exception, including Kohanim and Leviim, we have the impurity of not having the Bet HaMikdash to purify our bodies, so no one can eat terumah and maaser. But yet they need to be separated. And there is a beracha to be said. And that's why whenever in America they sell Israeli vegetables, they always send you a warning. Costco sells Israeli peppers. Sure, La Hacienda had Israeli bergamot. So what's the question here? If it's from Israel, you cannot eat it. You need to separate terumah and maaser. So the question is, does terumah and maaser applies outside of Israel or not? So the way you do it is you do the separation with a special prayer without beracha outside of Israel. Unless the factory itself from Israel, you got to do some homework and call the supervision. You need to find out if this factory that has the license to export outside of Eretz Israel, by default, they separate terumot and maaserot. That's why many people in Israel will say, I only buy fruits and vegetables from this store, not from the average Joe Schmo supermarket. Because sometimes they may not even have supervision. You're driving on Highway 6, somebody's selling fruits and vegetables. It's not so easy that you're allowed to buy from them because maybe Jewish crop. And the question is, was terumah and maaser separated? Today, nowadays, we have Hala, that Hala is a mitzvah that is applicable also outside of Eretz Israel. That's why when you do the Hala, what do? You say a beracha, and what do you do with it? You burn it. Why you burn it? Because you're not allowed to eat it. Why you're not allowed to eat it? It's the same Hala of my Chali on Shabbat. True, but we don't have the physical purity to eat something that is called holy. The challah, that small piece of dough that we burn, has kedusha. And since we are not pure until Mashiach comes, then we cannot eat it. Now let's take a dive into the Mishnah of today that we mentioned. And it says as follows. There are two types of transgressions. Individual transgression and collective transgression. When it comes to individuality, a person has its own account. Its own account in Shamayim. Like on the planet Earth, your social security is different than mine and different than hers. Everybody has their own file. In Shamayim also. But when the sin, it became magnified. Like somebody tells me, in our community, our tradition is to do X, Y, Z. That's beautiful. If the tradition is a good tradition, it's magnificent. But if, God forbid, the tradition is not according to the halakha, and you're saying in our community, says the commentary on the Mishnah, so the sin, it's multiplied by the size of the community. God forbid. And that's why it says the consequences of this Mishnah involves the bulk of people. And therefore it says that when a community allows themselves, and when I say community, I don't mean a specific community, any community. Here the Hebrew word for community is tzibur, congregation. That's basically what it means. So if the congregation just on their own man-made Shulchan Aruch allow themselves to say, nah, we have no Bet HaMikdash, no Kohen, no Levi, no need to separate Maaser. No, we have no Bet Kohen to give the Halak. So forget about it. There are people who are like that. There are people who are like that. Not in your world. Baruch Hashem, because you surround yourselves with good people, good Hachamim. But out there, even in the Jewish community, there are these types of mindsets who says no need, mutar, etc. And it says that Haz v'Shalom, that kind of mindset, it gets multiplied by the amount of people that participates in that mindset. The opposite is the true when you do something good. Let's say, simple example. Easy example, somebody sponsors a class, or somebody sponsors a seudah. Okay, you may have paid XYZ amount, but in Shamayim, the benefits gets multiplied by how many people benefited from your action. 50 people came to the class, your sechar is multiplied times 50. 100 people came, or 2,000 people listened to the class, the zechut gets multiplied. So the investment is basic, is minimal, but the return is better than an IPO. Because we're dealing now with spiritual matters. And it says further, and it says that if some people are careful in observing and some are not, so the rain gets calibrated. The rain that comes from Shamayim gets calibrated. The more good deeds we do, the more allowance of rain. The less people, less rain. More people, more rain. And it's Gishme Beracha. Let's clarify. It's the rain of blessing. Because what opened the fountains of heaven? The mitzvah that a person did. And that's why the Gemara writes, Midah keneged midah. Says many times people wonder why the Parnassah is not the way it should be. So here he brings a Gemara in Masechet Shabbat that it says, when there is a drought, when there is no rain, the cost of food goes up. Like eggs. How much you paying for eggs today? I want to hear.
$45.
Do you know $13.99 in some places?
Six something.
Chazak Baruch. Let me know when and where. Tell my wife. Okay, go to Walmart, $8.99. Go to La Hacienda, whatever. And I ask you a question: why the eggs are so expensive?
There was a
Because there is an avian flu. So I'll ask you a question. And it's a flu, the special flu that affects the chicken.
virus.
And a virus. And therefore they cannot deliver the egg. But in the meantime, the chickens are plenty of them in the field. I don't understand. If you have chicken, you should have eggs. But I'm not an expert on the field. But that's the next Mishnah. What is a flu? What is COVID? A plague. That's the next Mishnah coming up. Not for today, but next week, Beli Neder. Let's go further. Gambru shelo lehaser. But now, if the overall community decision was from now on, we don't have to do it, then you need to deal with another type of problem. Violence on the street. Mehuma. What's mehuma? This type of convulsive behavior. And it says, wars, rioting, the installation of fear the disturbance of the peace of mankind to the point that people cannot leave their home to go to work. God forbid. It's like we're reading the headline news of today. It's not different today. So what happens if there is a drought and there is riots on the street and people are afraid of leaving their homes to go to work? Sooner or later, you're going to have famine. So if you cannot leave your home and you're not working, you're not making money, how are you going to, oh, Rabbi, today I'm going to call Uber Eats and Instacart. That's the answer that somebody will give. What's the problem? I understand that today we have Uber Eats and Instacart, but the Mishnah is trying to say, don't think that whatever happened in the world is just, we can blame the fingers to a political scenario or to illegal immigration or the border or whoever you want to call. The Mishnah seems to imply that a lot of these matters that became part of our vocabulary, became part of our day-to-day life, we carry a certain level of responsibility. Comes the next Mishnah, and it says, for example, in the time of Eliyahu Navi, there was a drought for many years. Then comes further and it says, Beshelo litol hala. For example, if the people decided, you know what, we don't need to do any more chala anymore, Ra'ab shel kelaya ba. It says there is a level of famine that doesn't allow humanity to survive. Yani more than the previous case. Humanity pays the price. That's a way that the Tosafot Yom Tov and others come. And it says that in the olden days, people wanted to look for ways to take shortcuts in their spiritual life. And when a person wants to take shortcuts, that's not always good. I'm not saying that shortcuts are not necessary sometimes. That's why the halakha has a broad spectrum when it comes to halakha and mitzvot. How many times you hear the rabbi says, yeah, it's fine, you have upon whom to rely. What does it mean you have upon whom to rely? Because halakha has a parameter of certain level of flexibility. But if the whole idea of the person is to find the shtick, why not to do it? Okay? That's also a problem. Because then you're trying to escape from your spiritual obligation as a Jew. Now, this is chapter number 5. Let me just go back 2 pages. I'm there. Okay, this is not yet. Right here. Okay, no, this we covered 2 weeks ago. This was again right here. Okay. Next page right here. Okay. Interesting enough, the Me'am Lois begins with an introduction about the topic of Emunah. So it says as follows. One of the most fundamental aspects of faith in Hashem is to believe in the topic of Ashgaha Peratit. Ashgaha Peratit in English means divine providence. And it says, it's not that God's supervision is limited only to the masses or to the world or to the entire earth, but actually this is about each person accordingly. If that's the case, says the Me'am Lois, if there are scenarios in life that affects mankind and humanity, that means that there is some shortcomings from people, and that action affects humanity in an adverse manner. So what does that mean then? That every time a person separates challah, not only we bring in beracha to ourselves, we bring beracha to the entire world. Everyone, a person that gives ma'aser based on the circumstances and scenarios. There are certain also parameters in the topic of ma'aser. Obviously, depending on the situation of the person, income, expenses, whatever. It's like a custom-made tax return, hamavdil. Okay? But meaning to say that if a person does what they need to do, not only that they get the zechut themselves for their own action, but that carries a domino effect to the entire world. And then he brings here the topic of ma'aser, which is something that we talked about. Now he asked an interesting question. What is the meaning, if I look back into the English version, page 74, what word, look in the first line, Shiv'a mineh pur'anuyot, 7 kinds of punishment. Now, why the Mishnah uses the word pur'anut? If it's me, Hebrew, the word for punishment is onesh. Sechar va'onesh. Reward and punishment. So why the Mishnah uses pur'aniyot? Because pur'aniyut has 2 meanings. Para, aniyut. Collection for poverty. What does it mean? Pur'aniyut means God is collecting. God is collecting. I read you the language. And it says, Lashon pur'anut mi lashon peraon. God says, I have open invoices. Who is going to pay them? What are the open invoices? The sins. You need to pay. And it says, Lelamedenu, it says to teach us that the hardships that come to the person is not a vengeance, God forbid, from God. But God says, you have a lot of open invoices. I can't continue. You're accumulating debt. You're maxing your credit cards. You maximize your credit line. What does it mean? Your allowance of averot. A person has an allowance of sins. But there is one key factor. We don't know what that allowance represents. We learned this Shabbat afternoon. When God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're going to be leading the Jewish people. Just have in mind that they are not the easiest people to deal with. Selashi, Sarbanim, Tarhanim. Sarbanim means you tell them to do something, they will say to you, why? Why me? Why us? Mesarev means refusing to comply. Tarhanim, they bother you. Where is the beef? Like it happened in the desert. We had demand every day, DoorDash, Instacart, Uber Eats, whichever company you use, deliver to your home. Not a joke. That's how it was demand. Demand was delivery to your home, to your doorsteps, providing that you behave good the day before. If not, you got to go down to the lobby to pick up the package. You got to go to the post office to pick up the package. That's how demand was categorized. If the man was delivered to your doorsteps, that was a great sign. If you needed to go 6 o'clock in the morning, put on your robe, your pajamas, and go to the corner to pick up from the receiving, the building, the guy in receiving will tell you, aha, what did you do yesterday? That's what's written how the man was. So some of the Jewish people complain. So God says to Moshe in last week's Torah portion, it says, I'm giving you a mission. It's like I said on the Shabbat class, imagine yourself, somebody is looking for a shidduch. Somebody is looking to get married, okay? And they say, I have somebody for you, unbelievable, a wonderful young man. Nice, so far so good. Okay, any issues? Yeah, he drinks, he smokes, he has a short fuse. but he's from a good family. Are you want to listen more, or you say, Dayeno? What did you just said? Why not? He's a good man. Because he's coming with a package. He's coming with a package. So God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, the Jewish people are a package. Sarbanim, Ragzanim, they're going to push your buttons, they're going to complain. And yet Moshe Rabbeinu, what did he do? No problem. I go. Comes the further and it says, Be'amar ba'im la'olam, it says, they arrived to the world. What does it mean that they arrived to the world? They were released by the sins that a person committed. So this Mishnah is telling us, and how difficult to absorb this may be, is that our actions have an unbelievable influence in the world. It says that our sins, it's like opens the jail doors. Remember, who has been in Miami from the 1990s? You and I. You?
70s.
Okay.
Forget 90s.
50. Okay, wonderful. But you remember the Mariel? 1980? From Cuba, right?
Yeah.
Or later?
New Year.
No, the Mariels came in 1980.
1980. What was the Mariel? Fidel Castro
Open the
opened the jails
And they
from Cuba and released not the moral citizens, the opposite. All the criminals, mental health issues, crazy people, whatever. And there was the law, I think it's called the wet feet law, right? There is such a law that if you come from a country that the United States has no political ties and you touch the ground, by default, you become a refugee.
Yes.
It's called the wet feet law. Your feet get wet. No, we don't have it anymore.
No, it didn't apply
Huh?
to allegations. They wanted
Oh, dry feet. Okay, wet feet, dry feet. Okay, but the same idea. So what happened? United States suddenly receives all these meshugaim, as they call them, and now they cannot do nothing about it. Nothing. You cannot send them back unless they caught them in the middle of the water, which is only 90 minutes from Key West. It's not. It's faster to get to Cuba than to get to New York. If you calculate the distance, Cuba is down the block. Okay? Hamavdil, without comparison. But the Me'am Lo'ez says, very simple. There is an account system called headaches to society. There is berachot and there is headaches. Our shortcomings, Haz v'shalom, can slowly open the gates of the headaches. So what this Mishnah is telling us, that the actions of one person do make a difference. Sometimes people say, it's only one person. It's like the fellow who went to a cruise and made a hole in his cabin. And the captain says, what are you doing? And he says to him, what's your problem? This is my cabin. I pay for it. Said, true. But if you sink, we all go down with you. That's what the Mishnah is trying to say. Goes further and it says, I don't understand, says the Me'am Lo'ez. Okay, so a person did not separated Ma'aser from the crop. Is it such a bad sins? There are worse sins. Not respecting parents is a serious sin. Killing, God forbid, stealing from others, eating Hametz in Pesach. Why do we seem to be like saying, oh, the not Ma'aser separation can be your worst enemy? So let's see what the Me'am Lo'ez writes, and it says as follows. One of the reasons there is a Gemara called Masechet Ta'anit, the tractate of fast days. Now, why there is a Gemara called Ta'anit? That volume of the Talmud deals with the many days of fasting that in the earlier generations were activated in the Jewish calendar. Why? Because there are two types of fast days. There is a fast day to remember a calamity. For example, Tisha B'Av, 17 of Tammuz, 10 of Tevet, Tzom Gedalia, etc. But there are fast days connected due to the lack of rain. If certain amount of weeks went by after Sukkot, the righteous and the great rabbis will do personal fasting to see if they were able to reverse the decree, because after Sukkot is over, we need rain. So if 2 weeks after Sukkot, which is the official opening season of rain in Israel, it did not rain for a certain amount of weeks, a handful will be fasting, daytime fasting 12 hours. If another cycle of a week and a half went by and there was no rain, so the fast day started to expand. Started small, it moved on to the next level, and if it reached around 2 Bishvat without rain, the entire city will fast. No one will go to work, will bring the teva from the knis to the street, and will pray on the street to bring embarrassment to the Jewish people in front of the Goyim. Sure. So the Jewish people will do teshuvah. It's no longer do your dirty laundry at home. Now bring it outside. And businesses were not allowed to be open. Only on Thursday, the grocery stores and fruits and vegetable stands were allowed to be open, lichbot Shabbat, and you were not allowed to bring the goodies on the street. You keep everything inside. In other words, the entire town had the atmosphere of semi-mourning, because this is how Hashem reacts throughout history, as the pasuk I mentioned in the Shema. Besartem ba'avatem elokim acherim b'ishtahvitem lahem. You will depart yourself from the ways of godliness, and you will gravitate to other beliefs, etc. Beharaf Hashem, God will become angry. Be'aseret hashamayim, will freeze the rain, the heavens, and will not be raining. And there is no rain, there is no crop. There is no crop, there is no food. There is no food, you starve. And once you starve, you pack your bags and you leave the land of Israel. It's like a domino effect. Comes the Me'am Lo'ez, and it says as follows. It says, the entire world agrees and recognizes that rain is an essential component of human life. It is true. It helps the environment, it clears the environment, and therefore it says, whoever is working in the field and in the vineyard needs to have the emunah that without rain, your field will die. God forbid. That's the reality. So if this is how you understand that your biggest asset is not your field, it's not your labor, it's the rain. And if the rain is coming down, that means that God is smiling and is releasing the beracha. And therefore it says, when it comes to separate terumah, maaser, for the needy, for the kohanim, for the leviim, be happy. Because it's like a person says, I'm so happy that I'm paying so much taxes. True story. Somebody told me this the other day. I'm so hazak u'baruch. You see how she hopped it right away? She's making a lot of money. So you're making a lot of money, you pay a lot of taxes. It all depends on your accountant also. But that's a different shiur altogether. No, maybe he's not maximizing all the deductions, And I can help you with that if you want. Okay? Anyways, but bottom line, it says here, if you know that your biggest commodity is the rain, so why are you doing something that the rain is causing your blessing? Unbelievable. So if a person starts thinking like this by saying, why do I need to give it to the Levi'im? Why do I need to give it to the Kohanim? Why do I need to support the needy? God says, okay, you don't want to do that. I'm going to remove my investment, which is rain. Deal with it without rain. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And this is, some people do, some people don't. But then it says that when it comes to blessed to rain, the Gemara writes that rain is equal to Tehiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. Now, I don't understand. What has to do resurrection of the dead with rain? Very simple. You planted a seed, dead seed, nothing. And then the rain comes, starts germinating, starts flourishing. Unbelievable. I don't want to say what I'm going to say now because it's a ladies' class. But the Gemara says something even related to the topic of procreation, related to the rain and the earth. I'll say one more. The pasuk in Megillat Ruth. There is a pasuk there that says that Boaz will go around the field and will say to the people, Hashem imachem, may God be with you. And people will answer him, Yevarechecha Hashem, may God bless you. Now, what kind of salutation is this? May God be with you. If I need to say hello to somebody, I say hello. Halas. Hello, good morning, good night, buenos días, buenas noches, and the end of the story. No. There the pasuk says, Hashem imachem. They will invoke God's names. May God be with you. And people will answer, may God bless you. The reason why they will invoke Hashem's name is to send a silent message to the farmer. God is with you. It's not you. Because you work the field, you may come and say, me, myself, and I. It's a pasuk in the Torah. Pasuk in the Torah says, Kohi be'osem yadi asali et ha'il hazeh. My might, my strength, my knowledge enable me to achieve the goals. And therefore Boaz will come to the field and will tell the people, may God be with you. And by injecting or by hearing God's name, that suddenly reset the neshama. And one of the ways, the way I mentioned a few moments ago, that Hashem will send His blessing of approval to the field was through the gift of rain. That's why, if you look in the Shaharit, Minha, Arvit prayer, where is the prayer of the rain? Next to Mehaya Metim. Mashiva Ruach Morid HaGeshem. Mehaya Metim Berachamim Rabim. The blessing of rain is connected to resurrection of the dead. You know why? Because the resurrection of the dead will happen like rain falls into the ground. What happens when it rains into the ground? The ground becomes fruitful and fructiferous, I think they call it. When the rain of Tehiyat HaMetim comes down, the mixture between the earth of the person's body and the water, it becomes like a challah. What is challah? Flour and water. You know how Adam Arishon was called? Chalato shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. God's challah. Because God combined earth, water, fire, and air. Esh, Maim, Ruach, Afar. When you bake challah, what do you need to have? Water, flour, that's the earth and the water. Then you bake it, that's a fire. and then you let it rise, that's the air. So you have the four components: fire, water, air, and earth. In the personality, in the world of personalities, is the same thing. You have people that are calm like the water, people that are humble like the earth. There are people that are very haughty, arrogant like the earth, and there are people that have a short fuse like the fire. These are the four personalities connected to the four components of human life. Fascinating Hidush from the great Me'am Loez. And it says, even wars, it says here, wars stop because of rain. The wars, it says, even when armies needs to go to war, maybe today is a big difference because you have all kinds of equipment, etc. It's a pasuk. It says that afilu gayasot, yani the Sava, the army, says it's raining now, Mori, we're missing the target, less visibility, too risky, too dangerous. Hashem sends the rain, so the war does not continue. Unbelievable Hidush. Wow. Just 1 second. Wow. Nice. Very nice. You have 5 more minutes?
Yes.
Wonderful. No, maybe somebody has to do, I don't know. I got plenty what to do. But I'm hiding here in the class. So when I go upstairs, they have Rahamim on me. So, Chala. Let's talk about the Chala. So it says that by nature, the heavens should not release water, and the earth should not become reproductive. That sometimes the heavens can become stiff like a metal, and the earth can become hard like a copper. It's a pasuk. In Vayikra, ונתתי את שמכם כברזל, ואת ארצכם כנחושה. פרשת בחוקותיי. It says one of the ways that God talks and shows his disliking is by the lack of rain. So it goes further and it says, what has to do with Hala? So it says, בזכות Hala נברא העולם. It says, Midrash Rabbah, it says, in the merit of the mitzvah of Hala, the world was built. Now what has to do? Because of the Hala, the world was built. It says, the Hala in the Torah is called Reshit. Reshit means the head, the beginning. And it says that the moment that Am Yisrael decided not to move on with the mitzvah of Chala, the beracha stops. And it says, what makes this sin greater than others? It says very simple. From the Torah, there is no measurement of how much Chala I need to separate. If I do certain amount of pounds or grams, I separate Chala. I ask you a question. You make a batch of Chala, okay? How much Chala you need to separate in order to burn the Chala? Okay, you say a hand, you say a kazait. You know that according to the Torah, there is no measurement. You take 10 grams and you say, this is a Chala, Chazak. You want to take a handful like you mentioned before? I think that's what many people do. Chazak u'baruch. But Shamayim says, I don't understand. I'm not telling you that you need to separate 2 pounds of challah for 5 pounds of bread. I'm telling you, take something, burn it, do the symbolic action. If a person is refusing to do the symbolic action, Shamayim says, I don't understand you. Not only that, it says, Sefer Hasidim says that even though we do not have the Bet HaMikdash today, and even though many mitzvot cannot be done today, but it says here very simple, that a person should train themselves to give the terumot and maaserot, like in the time of the Bet HaMikdash. Obviously, maybe in the time of Sefer Hasidim, there was a thing over 200 years ago, the field of agriculture, it was the most pronounced source of income for the Jewish people. But as the years went by, things may be a bit different. But when we talk about Maaser today, it refers to Maaser of money. And it says, like in the Bet HaMikdash, have in mind when you give tzedakah to an ani, to a needy person, or to a destitute, or Talmidei Chachamim, etc., put in mind, I'm giving the gift to the Kohen. You know what the Gemara writes? Don't take it personal. But it says, a person who gives a gift to the rabbi, it's like you gave Bikurim to the Kohen in the time of the Bet HaMikdash. I'm not asking for gifts, please. But I give you my Zal number later. Okay? But in a more serious note, it says, why? And that's what Sefer Hasidim says. It says, when you do that with that kavanah, Hashem takes that kavanah and he says, look at somebody in Miami. Somebody in Miami now suddenly is reminding me to build the Bet HaMikdash. It's an unbelievable zechut, says Sefer Hasidim. And it says, not only that, it says, why there is a connection in the Torah, when the Torah talks about the mitzvah of separating challah next to the prohibition of idolatry. What's the connection? Idolatry, challah, idolatry. We have a rule that whenever the Torah puts together two topics, that means that there is a message. For example, I'll give you one example. The mitzvah of observing Shabbat in the Ten Commandments, it's next to the mitzvah of honoring your parents. And the question is, what's the connection? Very simple, the Torah says. Your obligation to honor your parents is as long as they don't ask you to go against the Torah. If God forbid a parent asks a son or daughter, I want you to do something for me, and that request is against the Torah or involves desecrating Shabbat, we're not talking about cases of medical emergencies. Medical emergencies, it's something else altogether. But let's say your parent tells you, okay, I want you to go to the bakery and buy me a dozen of fresh bagels. I want you to go to the newsstand and buy for me the newspaper. Even though it's wonderful and you do that 6 days a week, the Torah says when it comes to Shabbat, even the Bet HaMikdash you cannot build. Even the Bet HaMikdash, you want to build it on Shabbat, we say, thank you very much. Shabbat, Kodesh. Shabbat is for Hashem, not to build, not to do Hilul Shabbat. It's like the same question. Why do the Torah place honoring your parents in the same side of the commandments that has to do with godliness? It says very simple. You honor your parents, you're honoring God. You're not honoring your parents, you're not honoring God. That's the reason why the commandment of honoring the parents is on tablet number 1. Not because symmetrically looks good, 5 and 5. Because if you look at the second half of the commandments, we have 3 commandments of 2 words. No Megillot like in the first tablet, but it says Shabbat and honoring parents have a relationship. Shabbat and Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mechila, honoring parents and HaKadosh Baruch Hu have a direct relationship. You know why? Because your parents and God, the Gemara writes, are the partners in our creation. The Gemara writes, Shelosha shutafim yesh ba'adam. There are 3 partners in the creation of a child. The mother, the father, and Hashem. It says, I will finish with this small paragraph, and it says, from here the Torah teaches us that whoever fulfills the mitzvah of separating challah, it's equal to nullifying the avodah zarah, nullifying idolatry. But it says, whoever fails to do the challah, it's like he's giving credence to the idolatry.
Why is it compared to idolatry?
Because it's next to each other in the Torah. And the idolatry is against God. Challah is, the challah belongs to God, and the Torah says, give it to the Kohen, give it to the Levi. The Yetzer Hara may say, why should I give it to the Kohen? It's my dough. God says, it's my dough, I let you have it. So in order for you to justify your ownership, do me a favor, give him a small piece of challah. That's the connection. And it goes further and it says that all these matters, and you can see a lot of these pesukim in Perashat Bechukotai and the pasuk that I mentioned of Kiryat Shema. And I think to close the class with this statement, next week we're going to discuss the topic of, God forbid, plagues and pestilence, or even wars. Why wars happen in the world? You may say, yeah, it's Zelensky and Putin. Okay, Hazaku Baruch. Everybody knows that. Okay, that's on the for the news channel.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can.
I want to know if there is something about the fruit trees with the maser
Of course.
at home. At home.
In your home?
Yes.
No, because
I have
this
fruit.
mitzvah is only applicable in Eretz Israel.
There's nothing
Only.
in the house.
The only mitzvah outside of Israel connecting to the trees is the mitzvah of Orla. Have you heard of this mitzvah? I'll explain to you. The 3 years of fruits, the first 3 years counting from the planting, you cannot derive benefits from the fruit. But, let me explain. The 3 years that the Torah refers are not 3 calendar years, 1100 days. It means years from the season of that particular tree. And in some cases could be Tu B'Shvat, meaning to say you planted a tree today, Tu B'Shvat is coming in 2.5 weeks, the tree turns 1 year old.
Even if it's
Because
not
it's
giving
in
fruit
season.
still.
You go by
No,
the
only for fruits. That's all.
When
But
it's
some trees like take a long time, a longer time.
like
to
10
be
years to give fruit.
How many years?
10 years. or
Fine.
8 years.
Once you cross the 3-year period,
Even
you have
if
nothing
it's
to
not-
worry about. You have nothing to worry about.
Okay.
That is the only mitzvah concerning the trees outside of Eretz
I
Israel.
cannot use them.
The
I
first
have to
3
leave them
years,
in the trees, or I can
let them go. Let them go.
Let them go.
They're not healthy. By the way, they're not healthy to eat neither.
Okay.
That's what says in the Sefer. I have it inside. Ta'amei HaMitzvot. It says, besides the spiritual message of the Torah, there is some benefit, there is some detrimental to the body to eat very young fruits from a brand new tree. Right? Unripe. Thank you. Shavua Tov, ladies. Have a good day.